Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday night AFKN Sports Report. Unbeaten Indiana again is the unanimous choice as the top team in the weekly Associated Press college basketball poll. All 47 sportscasters and writers in the AP panel gave the Hoosiers the first place vote. However, there have been some significant changes this week. Maryland is inched up to second place, Louisville has climbed to third, and Kentucky fourth. UCLA has tumbled to fifth. Marquette has made it up to sixth place, one spot ahead of defending national champion North Carolina State. Rounding out the top 10 are Alabama, Arizona State, and Pennsylvania. Clemson leads off the second 10 in 11th place. Then comes Southern Cal, Creighton, North Carolina, and UTEP. Notre Dame is 16th, followed by Oregon State, Pan American, Arizona, and Washington is 20th. In college basketball action today, Steve Green pumped in 23 of his 30 points in the second half to lead top-ranked Indiana to a 112-89 victory over Illinois for the Hoosiers' 30th straight win. Indiana was ahead the entire game, but led by just 6 points at halftime, 50-44, and the Illini came within 5 points at 62-57 with 14 minutes left in the game. The Hoosiers then outscored Illinois 12-3 in the next 4 minutes, and the result was never in doubt. Indiana, playing its first game this season without injured star Scott May, shot 71% from the floor in the second half. Illinois was led by Rick Schmidt with 31 points. The Hoosiers demolished the league doormat Wisconsin last week, and Bud Fotopoulos of ABC has a filmed report.
It was a mismatch as Wisconsin, occupants of the Big Ten cellar, went against Indiana, undefeated and presiding as the nation's #1 college team. Quinn Buckner, number 21 in white, let the Badgers know what was in store for them early on this turnover and basket. Scott May, number 42, joined with Buckner in the early going to build up Indiana's lead. May hit on 9 of 11 shots in the first half and finished with 23 points. Good shooting by Wisconsin's Bob Lutzinger and Bruce McCauley were the only things that kept the Badgers respectable. But the Indiana defense was simply too tough, forcing 17 turnovers in the first half alone. Here, after Bill Pearson grabbed a rebound, May coolly took it away from him and turned around for an easy basket. With a 33-point lead midway into the second half, Coach Bobby Knight emptied his bench, and the Hoosiers still wound up with a 35-point bulge at the end. Indiana 93-58, its 28th straight win, that assured at least a tie for the Big Ten championship. Bud Fotopoulos, ABC News.
In other Big Ten action today, Wisconsin upset Michigan 70-68, Northwestern down Michigan State 67-66, and Purdue shellacked Ohio State 84-72. Elsewhere in college basketball today, a pressing Florida defense held 8th-ranked Kentucky scoreless for 9 minutes late in the game and allowed the unheralded Gators to post a stunning 66-58 upset victory over the Wildcats. Kentucky trailed at the half 39-33, but rallied to a 54-50 advantage with 11 minutes to go, but then went cold. The loss dropped Kentucky out of first place and one game behind Alabama in the Southeastern Conference. Gator forward Gene Shai paced the winners with 20 points, while Kevin Grevy led the Wildcats with 20. Charles Russell and Charles Cleveland each scored 20 points to pace 5th-ranked Alabama to an easy 73-64 win over Georgia. The Crimson Tide took a 6-4 lead early and never looked back. Alabama was ahead 39-32 at the half and raced to a 53-42 lead with 12 minutes left to go in the game. Cleveland scored 10 of his 20 points in the final 9 minutes to seal the Alabama victory and give them first place in the SEC. In other SEC games today, Vanderbilt topped Mississippi 86-80, Auburn crushed LSU 110-94, and Tennessee destroyed Mississippi State 109-83. Elsewhere, Stetson mauled Georgia Southern 101-72. Rhode Island topped Vermont 84-64. Florida State beat Mercer 91-68. Massachusetts devoured New Hampshire 93-71. Western Kentucky demolished Austin Peay 92-76. Middle Tennessee tripped up Maury State 99-90. Tennessee Tech beat Morehead State 85-77. Furman nipped Jacksonville 80-79. Campbell defeated the Citadel 86-78. Loyola of Chicago got by Southern Illinois 67-53, and Virginia Commonwealth buried Canisius 86-61. In local basketball action, the 8th Army basketball tournament gets underway Thursday at Camp Red Cloud, with 4 teams vying for the title. Representing Area South is the 260th MP Company from Camp Carroll. The Area Central team will be U.S. Army Garrison Yongsan. I-Corps will be represented by C Company, 44th Engineers, and Camp Casey's hopes will be placed with Headquarters A Company, 2nd Supply. The semifinal games and the championship contest will be carried live by AFKN AM radio on Saturday and Sunday at 1400 hours. Buffalo's Bob McAdoo is closing in on his 2nd straight National Basketball Association scoring title as he heads into the final 6 weeks of the regular season with a 2-point-per-game lead over Golden State's Rick Barry. McAdoo is averaging 34 points for the first 61 games, while Barry is scoring 32 a game, and Milwaukee's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is 3rd with 30.1. Barry is first in steals with 2.79 per game, 2nd in free throw shooting, and 7th in assists. New York's Bill Bradley is the best free throw shooter with a percentage of .915. Don Nelson of the Boston Celtics is the top field goal shooter with a .533 percentage. Wes Unseld of Washington is the leading rebounder with 14.8 a game, while Abdul-Jabbar, Kansas City Omaha's Sam Lacey, and Happy Hairston of Los Angeles are tied for 3rd. Detroit's Dave Bing leads in assists with 7.6 a contest, and Abdul-Jabbar is topped in block shots with a 3.23 a game average. The Cleveland Cavaliers set out on their NBA road trip without starting guard Jim Clemens. He's out of action indefinitely with a badly sprained left shoulder. It was first thought that Clemens had a dislocated shoulder. The Cavs, 2nd in the Central Division, are battling for a wild card spot in the NBA playoffs. Cleveland has been struck hard by injuries this year, as their other starting guard, Austin Carr, has been out most of the season, and center Jim Jones has just rejoined the team after a knee injury. The league's Board of Governors said today that it will hold a special meeting next Tuesday to discuss a successor to outgoing Commissioner Walter Kennedy. The league also will take under consideration the formation of the playoffs and hear a report on the current status of negotiations with the Players Association. The 3-year agreement between the players and the owners expires in June. There were no games in the NBA today. However, the American Basketball Association had 3 games on the agenda. George McGinnis scored 41 points, grabbed 25 rebounds, and handed out 13 assists in a one-man charge that led the Indiana Pacers to a 120-108 victory over the San Diego Conquistadors. The Pacers, notching their 6th straight victory, had 7 players in double figures. Indiana led 62-48 at the half, built up a 20-point lead late in the 3rd period, and then coasted to one of its easiest victories of the year. Caldwell Jones led San Diego with 32 points. In other games in the ABA, Artis Gilmore scored 33 points to power the Kentucky Colonels to a 109-87 victory over the Memphis Sounds. In the contest, Stu Johnson of Memphis became the 9th player in ABA history to score 10,000 career points. Kentucky broke away from a 46-44 halftime lead, outscoring Memphis 66-43 the rest of the way. A spokesman for the Colonels said today that the club has no plans to replace forward Jim Bradley. The Colonels, reduced to a 9-man squad by the absence of Bradley, lost 3 games over the weekend to fall out of a tie with the New York Nets for first place in the ABA East. The Colonels moved to within a game and a half of New York as the Utah Stars shaded the Nets 117-113. Veteran guard Ron Boone scored 33 points, and rookie Moses Malone added 31 points and 19 rebounds. Julius Erving netted 33 points to pace New York. Down 108-106 with 4 minutes to go, the Stars scored the next 6 points to lock up the contest. Utah hit a torrid 62% from the field to 50% for the Nets in the game. The National Hockey League had the day off today, but the Philadelphia Flyers reported an outbreak of injuries. Defenseman Jim Watson and center Oris Kindrachuk are both suffering from back muscle spasms and are doubtful for Thursday's game against the Atlanta Flames. Forward Bill Clement is hobbled with a knee injury and will miss the contest, and goaltender Bernie Parent was treated at a hospital for a sinus condition, but the ace netminder is expected to play Thursday. In the World Hockey Association today, there was only 1 game scheduled, and Quebec beat San Diego 5-3. The Toronto Toros announced the signing of 18-year-old Marc Napier from the ranks of junior hockey. This despite an agreement between the WHA, the National Hockey League, and the Canadian Amateur Hockey Association not to permit the signing of players under 20. League President Dennis Murphy says that if any team has signed an underage player, it is his intention not to approve the contract. Napier, currently playing right wing for the Toronto Marlboros of the Ontario Hockey Association Junior A organization, reportedly signed for $1 million over 3 years. He's considered one of Canada's top amateur hockey players. In baseball news this evening, Boog Powell of the Baltimore Orioles, the 1970 American League Most Valuable Player, appears headed for the Cleveland Indians. It was learned today that the Orioles are trying to trade the 33-year-old first baseman, along with pitcher Don Hood, to the Tribe in return for catcher Dave Duncan and an unnamed player. All that is holding up the deal is the fourth man, and the two clubs are hopeful of completing the deal by Thursday. Powell, who hit 35 homers and drove in 114 runs in the Orioles championship season of 1970, has been used sparingly by manager Earl Weaver. Meanwhile, Weaver has other pressing problems. 8 members of the Orioles officially became holdouts when the club opened its spring training for pitchers and catchers in Miami today. Weaver had only 5 pitchers and 1 catcher from last year's club on hand for the opening workout. Among the missing were pitchers Ross Grimsley, Bob Reynolds, Mike Torres, Doyle Alexander, Wayne Garland, and Don Hood, plus catchers Earl Williams and Andy Etchebarren. Pitcher Steve Blass says he'll retire if he doesn't play for the Pittsburgh Pirates this season. Blass has been shuttled to the minor leagues the past 2 years because of control problems, and he admits if he doesn't pitch well in spring training, it will be the end of his career. Compounding Blass's problems, the hope among Buck officials that this year's pitching staff, if it stays healthy, will be among the strongest in the club's history. It'll be hard for Blass to break into a starting rotation, which includes Ken Brett, Jerry Royce, Jim Rooker, Bruce Keeson, and Doc Ellis. Veteran Juan Pizarro avoided being dropped from the team yesterday when he appeared in training camp. Jim Hunter stopped at the New York Yankees training quarters in Fort Lauderdale today, just long enough to drop off his bags and go out apartment hunting. The club also announced Mel Stottlemyre has agreed to terms from the 1975 season, and 5 players returned signed contracts. They were third baseman Greg Nettles, first baseman Chris Chambliss, and pitchers Dick Tidrow, Mike Wallace, and Tippy Martinez. In women's tennis news tonight, Yvonne Goolagong's victory in last week's Virginia Slims tournament in Detroit boosted the young Australian into 8th place in the tour's money list for this year. Miss Goolagong defeated Margaret Court 6-3, 3-6, 6-3 in the Detroit title match to increase her earnings on the tour to $18,163 in 2 events. Chris Everett, who sat out last week's tourney, continues to lead the money list with over $52,000. Czechoslovakian teenager Martina Navratilova is second and Mrs. Court third. Mrs. Court defeated the young Czech girl in Chicago in 3 sets 2 weeks ago, and ABC's Ernie Nims has a report.
It's the title match of the Virginia Slims tourney in Chicago. Margaret Court wins the first set 6-3, demonstrating a nice touch on a drop volley. The second set belongs to 18-year-old Czechoslovakian Martina Navratilova. Here she aces Margaret Court to take set point and win it 6-3. Some inconsistent play at the net as the Czech teenager's downfall in the third set. It's Margaret Court, after taking a year off for the birth of her second child, who shows her championship form. Here's 2 sequences. First, a point for Court, then Navratilova breaking service. Martina Navratilova is up against match point, trailing 5-2 in the final set. Here's the finish. Margaret Court wins 6-3, 3-6, 6-2, her first tournament title since 1973. Ernie Nims, ABC News, Chicago.
Tennis history was made today in Ridgefield, Connecticut. Wesleyan University co-ed Abby Maynard became the first woman to play in a regular men's pro tennis tournament today. However, she didn't last very long. Romania's Ion Tiriac ousted her in the first round 6-love, 6-love, and he needed only 25 minutes to do it. In other matches, Roger Dowdeswell tuned up for his match with Jimmy Connors by defeating Ganos Benyik of Hungary 6-3, 6-2. Dowdeswell will compete against the top-seeded Connors on Thursday. Peter Fleming of the U.S. beat William Brown, also of the United States, 7-6, 6-3 today, and that win gave him the privilege of meeting second-seeded Nastasiu of Romania tomorrow. Also, John Yule and Jan Pieski were winners today. Other seeded players in the tournament include Americans Vitas Gilioletis and Alex Mayer, along with Jan Kodish, Roger Taylor, Jurgen Fassbender, and Juan Gisbert. Marty Reeson, Arthur Ashe, Bob Lutz, Stan Smith, and Dick Stockton will make up the American team that will try to wrest control of the Etna World Cup from Australia next month. The American team was named today by Dennis Ralston, who will captain the U.S. players in the $55,000 international competition to be held in Hartford, Connecticut, March 7th through the 10th. The Aussie team, announced last week by Captain Fred Stoll, is made up of veterans John Newcomb, Ken Rosewall, Roy Emerson, and 22-year-old John Alexander. Stoll said he was hoping that veteran Rod Laver could work out commitments to join the team. Otherwise, he would probably go with Phil Dent. The Aussies have won the AWC the past 3 years and have a commanding 4-1 lead in the annual series, with the Americans winning only once in 1971. And negotiations have stalled in the proposed tennis match between Jimmy Connors and John Newcomb. Connors' manager, Bill Reardon, says in New York they talked all day with Sidney Garthridge of Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Connors defeated Rod Laver in Vegas 3 weeks ago. Reardon commented today, "We haven't even agreed on point one. As of this moment, the situation looks bleak." That's sports for tonight. This is Air Force Sergeant Tony Uminski reporting. Army Specialist Mike Scott has these final words.
Thank you, Tony. Well, a Portland, Oregon man has been ordered to appear in court next month on a charge of illegally wearing a Planet of the Apes mask while hitchhiking. 25-year-old Walter Kaufman was cited by police under a little-used Portland city ordinance that prohibits wearing a mask or disguise in public. That's our report of news, weather, and sports for this 25th day of February. For the crew here at AFKN, for Air Force Captain Steve Pryor and Air Force Sergeant Tony Uminski, this is Army Specialist Mike Scott bidding you a pleasant good evening.
This has been AFKN News, compiled from the wires of the Associated Press, United Press International, and the ABC Film Service on the American Forces Korea Network.